Hi, my name is Brad. I'm with Blue Nile Farm in northeastern Ohio. I've been re-baling hay for the last 8 years, and I produce round bales, and I bring them into my barn throughout the summer. Our harvest season starts in June and ends in pretty much October, so we have a very short season. So my goal when I produce hay is to get as much of it off the fields as quick as I can. That's why I put it in round bale form. The idea of going into rebaling is the idea that for 365 days a year, 7 days a week, I can take those round bales and convert them into square bales. Then I can either take those square bales and feed them out, or I can sell them for profit. Either way has been very productive for me. I find it to be a very efficient system that fits my bill and it might fit yours. So if you're curious about rebaling, you want to get started in this, watch this video. I'll cover all the equipment necessary to get started. A rebaling operation started, I was looking at different types of unrollers that were on the market. Since I'm more of a smaller farm and I might rebale 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7,000 bales at most per year, I wanted something that was cost effective, but something I could afford and I kind of go on a limb. And there's a lot of different operations that are out there that do a heck of a lot more bales than I do in rebaling. So I found that some of the rebalers that are multi-piece units, like the T's, Unroller, and other brands similar to that. They're like 3 pieces. They unroll, they have a platform to start, then they have an unroller, then they have a fluffer, then they have a feeder that takes it to the baler. I chose a standalone unit because they're a lot less expensive, and I find it does basically the same thing. So since I have a lot of the equipment already, and the only thing I needed was the unroller, I felt that a single unit unroller would meet my niche. And I found 2 that were available on the market. There was the Alltech, which is a chain operated bale unwinder or unroller, and the other one was a Hustler. The Hustler made them for just basically a bale unroller as a feeder, and they also made one which was at the time the 1500, which is a bale unroller for rebaling, and I purchased that one. And I bought that back in 2017. They have a 2500 model, I believe now. I really haven't kept up with Hustler and what they're doing, but today I'm going to talk specifically about the unit I have, or basically a single unit that can be purchased as a bale unroller. So one of the first considerations in rebaling hay is, are you going to do it where you're going to do it? I prefer to do it in a building. I think it's best for most people because of the inclement weather, the rain. It is a lot better to have a building where you can store your hay, run your rebaling outfit, and keep it very consistent. My rebaling equipment rarely moves from where it is. There's a tractor hooked up to a baler. It probably moves only 3 times in the entire year to get it out, do oil changes, clean it off, put it back, maybe do some maintenance on the machines, and goes back to work. The tractor rarely comes out other than maybe picking off some round bales off a field. As far as building goes, you need to have enough width and length to keep your hay and your equipment in. This building here is 62 by 140 foot long, 35 foot high to the ceiling. I have plenty of room in here to do what I need to do. It was basically my riding arena that I converted into my hay operation, and it works very well for me right now. The one thing that I would do a little differently, it would be running my hay bales from left to right, coming back toward me off the wall. I think that would be a little bit easier. The reason I went the long way was because we were trying to get some marina area in, and I can kind of separate hay a little bit better. But next year I think I'm going to run it the opposite direction. The biggest thing that you have in the barn space is you have enough area for either a tractor or a skid steer to move around, grab a bale, and set it in. The first piece of equipment that you're going to need in the rebaling operation is a tractor equipped with a bale spear. The goal of the tractor, or a skid steer for that matter, is to grab the bales, stick them in the unroller, and so you can begin the process. Make sure you have enough tractor horsepower and lift to be able to pick up the bales that you're dealing with. Depending on where you're rebaling, the skid steer may be a better fit in tight areas, or the tractor, depending on your type of environment. The problem with the skid steers are because they do a lot of jerking and turning, you're going to rip up the ground, where you're going to do less damage inside a building with the tractor. But again, you have to have the amount of room to work and navigate. I started off with a skid steer for a while. I cleared an area. Now I'm using a tractor, and I can use a skid steer for other things. But for the most part, set yourself up in enough area that you can manage what you need to manage. So the first step in a rebaling process is to select the bale that you're going to rebale. Today I have a 4x5 bale here. It's pretty dense inside the bale. Yield of squares for this one round is approximately 15 to 18 square bales that I expect to yield from this. This bale was net wrapped. We took the net wrap off. I cut it, make sure you remove all the net wrap. And so once they come in with the loader tractor, I'm going to pick this up and then pull all the net wrap that's underneath the bale out and then set it on top of the unroller. I'll hopefully demonstrate that for you in a minute. But these are with the 4x5 bales. If you encompass these, they are a little bit more tedious sometimes because of the way that they're wrapped in the field. They come out a little bit aggressive, I guess you want to say, so you have to be careful on feeding it into the square baler, and that's with any bale. But for the most part, 4x5s, if they're loosely made, they have a habit of coming out in bigger chunks and could easily plug your baler. So be cautious of 4x5s or anything larger, but for the most part, they're one of the better bales to use in an unroller system based on my experience. 4x6 bales would work just as good. But basically, the width of 4 foot makes it a lot easier with the system that I'm currently using. I find that to be a better and easier producer, even though I have used 6x6 bales at one time, and they would produce almost 34 square bales out of one round. So they were really a producer, but they were hard to manage because of the amount of, they were loosely made with an old chain baler, and they were coming off very flaky. So that's my experience with that. I currently make 4x4 round bales. That's predominantly the bales size that I generally choose to make. And I currently use a John Deere 447 round baler, and it's string tied. And it's it's more of a modern version of the 335 baler. The 4x4 bales that I make will generally produce bales between 10 and 12 squares per round bale, and that's through the rebaling process. And when they're made the proper size, they're closer to 12 square bales that you should yield out of this. This is a string-tiled bale, so it's very important that you get the string off the bale before you rebale. So basically, the bale, when it's string-tied, it starts in the middle, works its way down, and goes all the way up to the top, and is wrapped several times. I try to get like 5 or 6 wraps on the top. So it's very easy for me to identify the top of the bale. The reason why I'm bringing this up to you is that when we put a bale on the unroller, whether it is a 4x5 net wrap bale or whether it's a string tied bale, the most important thing when that bale goes on the unroller, that it's in a clockwise position. So when you look at that bale, make sure all the grasses are going in the right direction clockwise, and then clockwise facing you going into the rebaler, because this is the proper position for the unroller to unroll the bale, and then it will go properly. It's one of the things that nobody ever taught me when I started this. It's something I had to learn. It took me over a year to figure it out. But clockwise position, facing you, going into the rebaler, unroller, and it'll make your life so much easier. So this is a LS tractor. It's the power source. It's 55 horse and produces low fumes in the building. It's hooked up to the John Deere baler through the PTO, and then the Hustler unroller is connected and operated through the tractor's remotes. These remotes are from on that stand there that will control the flow of hay into the baler. The baler itself is a John Deere 338, which is it's a standard baler, and it produces good consistent bales for me, and it works good with the Hustler. Then I have 2 hay wagons, and so once that hay is produced, I'll make about 20 or 30 bales, and I'll stack them up as needed, and they're on the wagon until they're either sold or they're fed out. And then inside this building, which is 62 by 140, there's a bunch of hay that you can see there that's dry, and that's used for our rebaling process. After covering the equipment used in the round bales that we use in a rebaling operation, let's watch it all come together and you can see for yourself how the system all works. So this is going to be an example of how to put a round bale into the unroller, and that'll start the rebaling process. First thing you do, remove that net wrap, get it out of the way. So once the bale is actually in there, it'll be in a clockwise position. So with this controller here, once this bale starts to run, the tractor's running, the tines are moving, this control panel here, the levers, will actually control this back plate and it will lift this bale up against these tines. These tines will start to go around in a clockwise position, or actually in a counterclockwise position. So when this thing's on clockwise, it's going to actually spin in a circle and actually feed out a waterfall into the baler. And once the water falls into the baler, as long as I'm feeding it in a nice, mellow, evenly pace, it will actually come out without plugging, and it works out fine. I've done thousands and thousands of bales, and I have plugged, I'm not going to lie about it, but you just have to learn what your baler can manage and what it will take. And so it's not just standing here and just popping some switches. It takes a little bit of finessing and be careful, but you'll learn your limitations on your baler. And what's nice about standing here in this position is that you're able to watch the feed process going in here. You're looking at the quality of the bale as it's coming off. If there's a string that breaks, you can quickly fix it, throw it back into the baler, and keep managing everything right here. Without this system here on the, as far as controller goes, and if you were just on the tractor running the remotes, you won't see as much of the feed going in. You're not going to know if you plug up as quick. You're not going to see if a bale breaks, just like you would in the field. So there's so many advantages to rebaling from this standpoint of being in the mill. I think it's just the way to go, especially when you have when you're stuck in an operation like this. First thing we're going to do, just watch how I use the hustler and how I pull it together and how it works. So there you have it. One bale, Re-Bale. That was a 4x5 bale. That's the amount of time it took. And you notice I reached in there with a hay hook and I had to mess around with the core. Cores by itself is a whole another day to talk about. But that's probably one of the biggest frustrations that people may have if they're inexperienced with rebaling, is how to deal with the core. And I'll talk about that in another video. But this is basically what it took to do one round bale. Saw a lot of dust in here too. There's a reason for that, and I'll explain that another time as well. But that's the process of basically rebaling one round bale, just from what you see between a rebaler and the baler. So in that last video that I ran through 4x5 bale through the rebaling process, I kind of sped it up, but it took about 10 minutes to go through the whole system. So generally, if you have a 4x4 bale, which you're going to produce 10 to 12 bales, it's going to take about 5 minutes. That 4x5 bale that I had took 10 minutes, and it actually yielded 17 bales. And I told you they range between 15 and 18 bales. I got about 17 bales out of that bale that I rebaled that you saw in that video. If you have a 4x6 size round, you're probably going to take you about 15 minutes. So the rule of thumb is the more hay you're going to produce, the longer it's going to actually take. And it's just something you need to keep in mind. I want to thank everybody for watching the video. Hopefully you found it very informative. I'm going to have future videos covering the rebaling topic, and hopefully I can answer a lot of your questions that you'll have, because we're going to go into a lot more depth. So thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.